There. Got it. Okay. So welcome to tonight's Zoom call. We're going to have a little bit smaller group than normal. About 4 or 5 or 6 of the folks that normally attend with us weren't able to make it tonight for a variety of reasons, but we've got a really good lineup of items to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the share screen here. And I hope everybody can see that.
Yeah.
Okay. So just a reminder again, I'm looking over to the right side of my computer screen and I can see several of your photos. There's a little histogram on the top, 1 bar, 2 bars, 3 bars, and a whole bunch of bars. And that tells you how many photos or how many video feeds you're going to get. If you put it on one of the smaller bars, you'll only get the video feed of the person who last talked or is currently talking. So given that, if you want to go on mute, that'd probably be a good thing so that rustling of papers or barking dog won't have your video show up while somebody else is talking. Okay, but of course, if you you have something to say or you want to make a comment or have a question, just come off of mute. You can click the button to come off of mute, or I know on my computer I just hit the space bar, and the space bar, it comes off of mute as long as I hold that space bar. Okay, so it's February 16th. John Paul Andres here, and you can see his email address, and I'm here, Mark Sheridan, and you can see my email address, and you can see our new little logo. So this is the first time we've seen our logo on our Zoom call.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. I'm going to switch to enter full screen here. Did that improve things? Make it a little bigger?
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so we'll open up with just a little welcome, and again, open for any questions anyone might have or comments based on what happened at any of our last Zoom calls. We've got quite a few reviews of projects that people have sent in to me in terms of what's on the workbench and in progress right now. So we'll start by talking through those. Wayne Smith has done a really good job of putting together a number of slides that help that's going to help us understand how he goes about painting a plaid pattern on his South Shore rednecks. And you're going to be impressed, and you're going to want to try this. I know I want to try it right away. I put a few slides together in terms of some of the carvings I've done and how I've approached them in carving wrinkles and folds into clothing. So I hope you make some use of that. Murray's going to talk a little bit about the upcoming carving shows in Ontario and what the Ontario Woodcarvers Association is prepared to do for us as a True North Caricature carving group at these shows. I'll just spend a minute talking about the TNCC logo vinyl stickers, and Lee was going to help with that. Lee got caught up with another thing to do tonight, and so I'll just cover some of the things that Lee was going to speak to, and then we'll end up with tips, tricks, and techniques, and that's informally anybody who has a tip or a technique. Furtis did send in something, and he'll have some time to review what he sent in as well. Okay, John, you might want to go on mute. I don't know if you're I see your photo there, but I imagine you can see my photo, right? Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's open it. I'll just leave this chart up if you don't mind, and we'll just open it up for questions. Are there any questions or comments anybody might have before we get into reviewing some of the projects?
Just, I want to say a welcome to the viewers that see this video after our meeting tonight. One from Ireland, especially. Very excited about the videos that they're watching, all of them. And also a number of new people, probably 2 to 4 people per day have subscribed to the channel. And so we just want to tell you folks, as you're watching this video tonight and your upcoming days, that we really appreciate you writing in. And if you do drop a note to us about where you come from or where you're located, we'd sure appreciate knowing that. And so this is just a welcome to all those that are online later.
Good. Thanks, Murray. Okay, let's look at some of the projects. We've got some really good looking projects that have been shared. And now that I've gone to full screen, I can't show you them. Sorry. Just give me 1 second here. There we go. Okay, Bob, you're on. Why don't you talk to us about these carvings? I have 2 slides for you.
Okay, there we go. Yes, we have a little project that for our coming up for our meetings, and one was an egg in a cup. So the first egg there was a biography of a covered bridge, and it was done on basswood, but the cup was done in birch. And the other was just it was all basswood. It was just a little man with a tree on his head. And the second picture there was cottonwood bark. We're just having on a East Clutch there every second Friday. We have a little project for bark carving. And one of our carvers brought in some cottonwood bark, and that's what we did it on.
Very nice. One of the things that John Paul was talking to me about the other day was having projects for ourselves. And so this is a good example of that. You know, I don't know whether you mentioned your club has a weekly or a monthly project or not, but John was suggesting maybe every one of our Zoom calls here, we introduce a project that we can all work on. So that's a good example of one. Those are nice.
Yes, and these are my gumball canes. There was a cane with a vine had wrapped around it. And when I was visiting my daughter in Tennessee, I cut it down and took the vine out and made a couple of canes.
So say that again. This I can see a wrap. So this is some kind of a stem, and then the vine wrapped around it, or?
Yeah, and when I cut it down, the vine was in those grooves, had spiraled up the gumballs tree, just a small one, and when I cut it down, the vine was still wrapped around in those little grooves, and I just dug the vine out.
Isn't that neat? So you've done a little bit of a face on the end of each of them here.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And the top piece I put on, I put a dowel through it, a wooden dowel, and just epoxied it in.
That's really interesting, Bob. Any questions for Bob? Thanks very much.
Okay.
Eric, I think I saw you log in.
Yeah, this is part of what Bob was talking about. Every month at Outaouais Wood Carvers, we have a contest, a wood wizard contest, and for February it was. Oh, sorry about that. This month for February, it was the egg cup art, and why I'm showing this is one of my entries. Was my entry, and I've sent a question to you, Mark, that, you know, most of my things, this is the third thing that I've entered here to show. One other one was the farmer, a tough road to hoe, and another, the cowgirl trying to feed the calf, and the calf says, no, I want the udder one. And so my things are more a case of they're sort of humorous, and not necessarily, the objects aren't necessarily characterized in some extreme way as some of the human forms have been. And I guess I'm just wondering whether this truly then is a caricature or what. The egg cup and the chick, that's all basswood in one. And I turned the walnut platter, and there's bird's eye maple spoon. And, you know, it's this play on, normally there's this thing about, can you do a perfect egg for me? You know, I got to have my eggs done just right, you know, soft boiled eggs. In this case, you know, it's done to perfection, but it's the chick that has come out of it. So, you know, it's humorous, just as real caricature ones are humorous too, but this is different. And I'm just wondering if you want to enter something of this type, does that fit in with the other types of caricatures?
Yeah, well, we'll let other people chime in as well. From my perspective, it does. If when you go to a live show, there's probably 26, 27 categories that you can enter a carving in. And, you know, what you'd have to choose between on this, is this a caricature or is this a lifelike wildlife? And it clearly isn't. So to me, this should be a caricature, and it would fit in very well with other caricatures. That'd be my sense.
Glad to hear that.
Does anybody have a different view of that? Okay, that's great. Thanks for sending that in, Eric.
Yeah, thank you.
So some new people have joined recently. Just a reminder to those who may not have heard, if you just put your laptop or iPad, whatever you're on mute, that'll prevent you know, rustling of paper or whatever going to your video and cutting out the person speaking. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that'd be terrific. Okay, Dave sent in this carving.
Hi. Well, I've been interested in carving people for a long, long time. I've done a fair number of faces, and recently I've become kind of interested in some of Lynn Dowdy's work. And he's posted a number of videos, and I was just fascinated by what he's doing. So I thought I'd give it a try. The carving, including the base, is about 11 inches high. The base is some teak that I had around, and I wanted to have a base that was different. So I thought, well, he's a cowboy, and so maybe I put a horseshoe on the bottom. So I made the horseshoe, and after I got the whole thing all together, my wife looked at it and said, "Well, it kind of looks like legs for a bow-legged cowboy." So there you go. Anyway, it was a fun project. Quite enjoyed it. It's in it's in 4 pieces. The hat is in 2 pieces, and well, 5, I guess. The head is separate, and the cigarette is separate. Getting the crown of the hat to fit precisely on the brim of the hat is a pain, absolute pain. But anyway, finally got there, and painting wise, I kind of followed Lynn Dowdy's tips, and I like that technique. I'll use it again.
Did a beautiful job.
Thanks.
Lynn is a real inspiration, and his videos are just absolutely stellar. And you've done a nice job of picking up Lynn's style, but you've kind of made it your own too. You know, I see elements of your own carving in there, so that's really nice. He looks like a real tough cowboy. The other thing I like, Dave, is like the way you've done the folds here. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about folds, and you've done the folds exactly the way that I think they should be done, and it looks terrific. Any comments, questions for Dave? Okay, thanks, Dave. Lee sent in a couple carvings. He started this one a few weeks ago, and you can see he's well, Lee obviously isn't with us here tonight on the Zoom call, but he's done a good job of getting his sort of branded character in place here. He's obviously continuing to use the wood burning tool and learning about that, and is doing a nice job. And here's the finished, and he calls this the sad sailor. So he certainly looks sad. Nice job. Baz couldn't make it either, but he sent in this one. Now this is a basswood. You know, all of the carved portion is basswood. The little moon coming up and behind the pine trees is box elder, and he's doing just a terrific job on this. He's not quite finished it yet, Here's the painting that he did to date, and he plans to finish it up with Howard's feed and wax. And after he changes a few things, he made an interesting comment. He said after he took a picture of it, he looked at the center portion of the boulders and rocks and didn't feel it really blended in with the others. And his observation was that he wouldn't have noticed that if he hadn't taken a picture and looked at the picture later. And so that's kind of his tip for tonight, that maybe sometimes when you do a carving and you take a photograph of it, you get a different perspective. I know that people that are outstanding wildfowl and songbird carvers, they'll carve their carving and hold it up in front of a mirror, because then you get the reversed image and things come out that you wouldn't see just by looking at the carving you've had in your hands all along. So I thought that was a good tip that Baz offered. Any comments on this carving? Okay, Larry sent in these bears.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, good. I did it right. These bears, I did just a quick little gift to the one in the middle, a couple of years for Valentine's present, and it was just a quick little carve, but it's really cute with the eyes, and I saw that in the Carving Illustrated magazine. So anyway, my girlfriend's got a get together that they with some ladies. They're in their 60s now, and they've been getting together since grade school. And each year they get together for a weekend once a year. So I did pumpkins a couple of years ago. So everybody was commenting on how they still had their pumpkins, and it was something special for each one of them. So this one here, I did some carve the bears, and my girlfriend, she'll paint them all up. I do the carving, she does a lot of the painting now. So it's a really quick, inexpensive gift, but it's cute as a button for like a young teenager girl, or for a niece, a grandkid, anything. But it's a quick, easy carve with some scrap basswood.
Really nice.
And on the balloons, I left the pieces of wood just so they're easier to hold when you're painting them and sanding them and everything else.
Yeah. That again might be an example of a good little project for us as a group, one of the monthly projects. So. Now, Larry, I thought this was interesting that you stayed with the theme of bear, and you sent in this one.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm actually doing life carvings, trying to expand, because I've been doing caricature carving for about 13 years now, almost 12 years. And but I'm thinking if I can do life carvings and understand how everything works, you'll do better carvings. I want to do cartoon ladies, is what I do a lot of wood spirits, everything else. And as we all know, ugly guys with big noses are really easy to carve. But a pretty lady with a nice little nose is not quite as easy. And so it's a little more difficult. So it's been a learning curve for me. So this is one of my first learning projects. And anyway, but it'll help me, I'm hoping, as I go back to doing caricature ladies. And then you'll know how the muscles, and it makes them look so much realer when you can have the actual proportional shapes properly.
You've got a beautiful carving there.
Thank you very much. I'm still working on it. Still got to be sanded a lot, but it's coming along.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Thank you very much.
Any questions for Larry? Okay, thanks, Larry. Furtis, you sent in a beautiful, well done head here. Pretty sure Furtis is on the line.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, my mic was kind of stuck, not letting me unmute. Sorry about that. So yeah, so this, I have this book, Carving Caricature Heads and Faces by Pete Leclerc, and it has a pattern in it. So what I did was I kind of scaled it down because the pattern in there doesn't fit on 2x2 blocks. So what I did was I scaled it down. I kind of made this pattern. My bandsaw is kind of right now is wrapped up because I've got some renovations going in the house and the contractor is using the garage. So I kind of just carved it with my knife and went all the way. And then I wanted to make him into a cowboy, but so I haven't worked on that. I'll probably do just a bust on that. Once I did that, I what I did was the last project that Doug Linker did. He used this oil. It's called the Terra Nova Nature Oil.
Mhm.
So I bought this from Home Hardware. It's like $12.99, and I put it on. So the one that you see in the picture, it's kind of pretty fresh, so it didn't blend in. And after that, the color changed a little bit and kind of like it. The oil is pretty good. Like there's no smell or odor or anything on that, and I was pretty impressed with it because in the past I've never used linseed oil because of different things I've been hearing about it, that the rags catch fire and stuff. So I wanted to give this a try, and I tried it, so I was pretty happy with it.
Now, is this something that you can then paint over, or are you leaving the finish like this?
No, I'm gonna paint over it. That's the plan. Once I put the head in a bust.
Mhm. So Doug Linker's experience is that even though it's an oil, it just soaks into the wood and it still takes acrylic paint?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
He puts this on, he leaves it overnight to dry, and then the next day when he starts the painting project he recently did some doors where he kind of carves the door in one video, and then the next video he goes and paints the door, and there's a video posted for that. So that's where he uses this oil.
Very good. Well, that's a good tip.
Can
Yeah.
you name that oil again? I didn't
Yeah,
quite
sure.
catch it.
That's the name.
Oh, it's
You
hard
can
to
see
see.
it. It's Terra Nova. It's CIRCA, circa 1850. It's a Terra Nova Nature Oil. Can you see that?
Yeah, Terra Nova
Nova.
Nature Oil, and it's
It's
made
two-
by, okay.
Yeah, it's 250 ml. It's $12.99 in home hardware.
Okay. I'll take a look
Thanks
at
very
that.
much.
You're
And
welcome.
Eric, they normally have it at the Home Hardware up on Hazeldean Road.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Sue.
Yeah, I've used it and very happy with the way that it takes acrylic paint after.
Hey, Mark.
Mhm.
I've been experimenting with some of the oils too. And so I've used the Terra Nova as well. And it works pretty good. You can paint almost immediately on top of it. And I've also tried a butcher block oil called Paderno. Makes a butcher block oil. You can get it at Canadian Tire. It's $8. And so it's a little bit cheaper than the Terra Nova. The exact same material. It's 100% mineral oil. In fact, mineral oil is made in two different viscosities. There's a heavyweight mineral oil, which is you can find in most pharmacies, but there's also a lightweight mineral oil, which is like the Terra Nova or the Paderno cutting board oils. And they do a nice job. I've gotten rid of my boiled linseed oil. I don't use it anymore for my projects.
And
use-
the advantage that everybody on the line here has seen from using it is that it seals the wood prior to the acrylics. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if you get to an end grain point and it sucks up the paint really fast and darkens it, this nullifies that effect.
I see.
So it works good for doing the job that the boiled linseed oil used to do.
Mhm.
Very good.
Yeah.
The look of this is very pale. I use the standard pharmacy mineral oil on my heads and so on, and it seems to be darker than what I see here in the photo. Is this a true rendition of the color in the photo? Because mine would be much browner, deeper tan using the standard mineral oil.
So Eric, I took the picture right after I applied the oil, but this is how it looks now. So it's kind of same. I don't see it darken up or anything. So
Yes,
looks
it
the same.
depends on the nature of the basswood. It varies a fair bit, I guess. One of my
Probably.
heads got to be quite dark, but then I had lots of beard in it, and maybe that makes a difference too.
Maybe, yes, that's right.
Was your oil really thick, the one you got from the pharmacy?
Yes, I guess so. It's the standard one, but I like using it because
Oh.
I like it on my hands, you know, I use my hands as well afterwards and rubbing it all over, sort of burnishing it. So, but it is quite heavy, I guess, but it dries up quite well.
Yeah, I have a bottle of the standard weight mineral oil that I bought at a pharmacy, and I found it just stays wet a lot longer. So you really do have to more or less wait till it's dried overnight before you can do any painting on it. But
I agree with you on that. Yeah.
yeah, Kevin Coates uses that Terra Nova oil quite a bit too, and I was talking to him about it, and he said he sometimes just paints right over after he's coated it.
Okay, I'm gonna give that a try. Thanks for that discussion.
Yeah.
Fred, you sent in a few pictures of your beautiful carving. You on the line, Fred?
I am.
Yeah, your audio's cut out just now, Fred.
Can you hear me okay?
Now I can, yeah.
I am here. Can you hear me okay, Mark?
Yep, that come across clear now.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Interesting part about this is this is not basswood, this is actually pine. If you look very carefully, I took two halves and glued them together. And if you look down the back or across the nose, you'll see the two pieces. It's about what, 9 inches wide and about 6 inches tall. And it's all one piece with the exception of the ears. The ears actually are inserted in there. And it came out pretty good. The eyes are glass, of course. Couldn't get them quite nicely just by using wood. So I'm pleased with it. I think it's one of my better carvings.
Looks really nice. It's really impressive how you got that the ram's horns spiraled like that, all one piece. That's crazy. That's good.
Yeah, I'm pleased that they turned out as well as they did, and just perseverance, just kept going with it. I guess it took me forever. I got a lot of encouragement from the people in the carving shop, of course.
Nice carving. Any questions for Fred? Thanks, Fred. Mike sent us in these photos of the carousel horse that he talked to us about at our last Zoom call. So this is the one that one of the ones that he completed, and you'll recall that they're an absolute detailed replica of a carousel called the Chippewa Carousel in Thunder Bay. And he sent us, he also sent us this picture that is both his carving and the real McCoy. And so you can see the beautiful job he's done there in replicating that. And the last set of photos Mike sent in to us was the work of some of the club members in putting together the panels that are at the, I believe these are the panels that are at the center of the carousel. And they are they did all of the carving of the dragons and all of these embellishment. They recarved all those and they're installing those. So you can see this is just a great club project, and they're doing just a pristine job. Okay, any comments on that?
Are the dragons like appliques?
Yeah, it looks like they did a relief carving, Eric, and then they've somehow fastened it on. Maybe it's glue, maybe they have a better way to fasten it. I see one fellow with a screwdriver there, but yeah, it looks like they were kind of a relief sort of a deal, and then they've applied them. Beautiful job. Just the bright colors alone are just great. Okay, Craig, I think you're on the line tonight.
Yep, I'm here. Okay, this is made out of a wood I found. My next door neighbor cut down a tree, and I found out it was linden basswood, which normally grows in Europe.
Hmm.
So I took a couple of stumps, and I carved it, and just a simple Scandinavian design I got off the internet. They sort of do folk art type carvings. And the Aurora Club is going to, they took my pattern and they're going to use it because they thought it was fairly simple for doing, for beginners to learn how to carve, because they're getting tired of doing the birds, the comfort birds. So there's going to be a whole bunch of people up in Aurora making this one. And I'm working on a second one, but it's not finished yet.
I like how the grain, the dark grain turned out. It just happened to be there, I suppose, but it just looks fantastic.
Yeah, there was a knot in the back corner, but I actually carved it out. It actually was okay, and I carved it out. Yeah, the grains came up nice, and I put the that oil, Howard's
Feeding wax. Yeah.
on it. That's all I put on. Of course, the mane is painted black, but and the tail. But other than that, it was fairly easy to do and took no time at all. I like doing things really fast. I don't think I spent a week on it.
No, it turned out nice. You also sent this one.
Oh yeah, this is this is Ozark Mountain people. Copied from Mike, I forget his name, Shipley, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, he had a book out that he did many years ago, and so I cut out the pattern. It's not finished yet, but it's getting there. It's almost finished. I still have to do the fingernails and do a little more detail work. It's basswood too.
You're doing a really nice job on this. I really like this.
Yeah, I got the ears to do and the eyes to do, and the nose. There's a ton of material on the nose.
You might want to just look at the cuffs of his arms here too, and maybe just round those out rather than too flat.
Yeah.
When I look at this side here, that looks pretty flat, so you might want to just round that out. But you've done a beautiful job on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Any comments or questions for Craig? Okay, and here's what I brought along. So you recognize that little emblem. And so I'm starting to do a little relief carving. I think it's about 8 inches in diameter. And the thought would be as we find ourselves at wood shows, if we do have a table together for the TNCC, we'll put this on the table. The item on the left is a bark carving, and I've done a number of bark carvings. This one is interesting in that it's a tree that is at my neighbor's cottage, and it's the tallest cottonwood tree in Ontario. And when the bark falls off, he tends to bring me a couple of little pieces. And so I took this piece. I liked how it had kind of split in the center, and I put a little bridge between the two homes, and it's hanging in his house now. So that's a lot of fun. If you haven't done cottonwood bark carvings, talk to me about it, because it's a lot of fun. It's a very quick carving because it's so easy to carve. The wood itself, the bark itself, and a lot of fun. You can really use your imagination and go crazy. Okay, any questions on that?
Very nice rendition there. It looks nice. Thank
Yeah,
you.
they're a lot of fun to do. Yeah. Okay, those are just beautiful carvings you folks have sent in. So thanks for sharing those, and I hope to see all of these carvings at our next virtual show. Right, John?
Yep.
Okay. All right, Wayne is going to talk to us about painting a plaid pattern, and that's certainly another thing that I want to give a try. So Wayne, why don't you take it away?
Well, here goes. This is new territory for me. I've done quite a bit of it, but I have never told anybody how I do it, and that's what I want to stress. I'm not telling anybody that this is the way it's done, or this is what you got to do, or anything like that.
No, you have to take full responsibility for all our failures.
No. This is how I do it, but I give credit where credit's due, and anybody that hangs around the Wood Carving Illustrated forum has probably came across a guy by the name of Mike Pounders. Lives somewhere down in the States. I'm not sure where. I think down in the southeast part, but it doesn't matter. Mike's an excellent carver and an even better painter. And a few years ago, he posted something. I can't even remember what it was, but it was a plaid shirt. And I just really, it was amazing. So anyway, I'm not a real bashful guy. I contacted him and said, hey, how about doing a tutorial? And he did. And so anyway, I tried to follow it. And like I say, it was fairly in depth and stuff. And so I've done what I think Mike was trying to tell me to do, but I'm sure it's not exactly as he done. And it's evolved over time because I've done quite a few of them. Most of my caricatures are hunting, fishing sort of characters. And even though I see you're wearing a plaid shirt tonight, they always wear a plaid shirt. So anyway, enough of the background. But the first thing that I do is I choose the colors that I'm going to use. And here again, I'm not really much of a fashion guy, so sometimes my colors are not what everybody else would think, but it doesn't really matter. I try to have like two colors. I'll have, in this case here, I had two reddish colors and two light pale gray white colors. And so you get a dark red and a lighter red, a gray and a white in this particular example. And I mix it up in those little jars there. I got them, I think, can't remember if I got them from the dollar store or from Amazon somewhere, but mix it up about 50-50. Consistency of maybe chocolate milk or something along that line. It wants to be pretty sloppy. And what I started in this case, I used it was a burgundy wine, which would be on the extreme left. The next one was a bright red, an Amish gray, and just a white. And as you can see, those are they're not fancy paints or anything, all from the dollar store. And mix them with water, 50-50. The next thing I do, and this is kind of contrary to what a lot of people with paint do, a lot of people will spray their black basswood and wet it and stuff, but you want your basswood dry. Don't put anything on it, no sealer, no nothing. Just carve it, sand it, do your burn your highlights and stuff, and then mix your paints. And I usually start with the darkest color, in this case the burgundy wine. And I think, if you pull the next one.
Wayne, I was just going to ask the question about your notion about just putting it on the bare wood. I wonder if that's because if it was sealed, the line would be too defined rather than kind of diffuse like a flannel shirt would look.
Yeah, I think so. But here again, we're talking about somebody else's style, and I've sort of adapted it. But yeah, I think that's the intent. But as you start crossing, you put your vertical lines first, and then the horizontal line of the same color. You want it to soak in there. It just seems, it gives the effect that you want. Where they cross, you're going to get a darker spot.
Right.
And,
right.
Anyway.
Okay.
So after I did this sample that's up here now, probably not the greatest one in the world, but I did it a little bit bigger than I would normally do. And I also, like I say, my colors are probably not as complementary as they normally would be on one of the shirts. But I did it so it would show, I'm a half decent carver, a poor painter, and a lousy photographer. So I said, I'll make it big enough so it shows up. The first thing I do in case of a shirt is I'll paint my vertical lines, just as you see them there, just and they're not even, they're but I think if you get them too perfect, they're not going to look. All right, here again, my opinion for what it's worth. Paint the vertical lines and let it dry. And I'm going to harp on this because it has to be dry before you do the horizontal lines. If you don't, it doesn't seem to have the same effect. I use a hair dryer, or else I wander off and do something else for a few minutes. But because the basswood is dry to start with, it doesn't really take all that long. So I paint the vertical lines first, then I paint the horizontal lines using the same color. And make sure here, like I say, make sure it's dry. Once I get that done, then I go over to, in this case, this was the burgundy wine. Yeah, okay. Then I've gone with the bright red, and I work from left to right. I guess it's probably because I'm right-handed, and so I start on the left-hand side of the shirt. Usually I start on the back of the shirt, between the shoulder blades or somewhere like that, because takes you a little while to get in the groove, and it's better to have the sloppy work on the back than on the front. So I work from left to right, and I make, using my bright red, I make vertical lines just to the immediate right of the burgundy wine, and I do that all the way across. And here again, make sure it dries. Once it's dry, then I do the horizontal lines, and I usually start at the bottom and put it above the previously burgundy wine line, and just keep going like that. It wouldn't matter if you started left or right, but whatever you start with, you've got to stick with from, until you're done with all four colors. Here again, make sure it's dry, but you can see where they cross each other, that you're getting darker squares there. Okay, then we go, well, next, in the next one, I went with this was the Amy's Gray. Here again, starting on the left side and immediately to the right of the burgundy
down for a second here, Joe.
stripes.
I'll be right back. Don't move. I'll be right
Hey,
back.
Donna, we'll get you just to mute your machine there, okay?
Anyway, keep working that way, and once that's dry, then we do the horizontal ones, doing the same thing above the burgundy wine and the bright red. And you can see the pattern is sort of developing. Every time I do this, and I've done it a lot, and I just did one here just the other day. By the time I get to about the third color, which is this slide here, I'm thinking, oh gosh, this looks terrible. I'm never going to do this again. But I persisted, so I keep going. And you've got to get the fourth color on with the final coat before it really seems to fall in place. Now that's just my way of looking at it, but it seems to happen every time. So I've got the Amy's Gray here done vertically, then horizontally, then we go to, yes. And here again, normally I probably wouldn't have used a white. I used I don't know, more of a beigey color or something, but I wanted something that was going to show the distinct four different colors. So, and here again, just keep going to the right, let it dry, then start at the bottom and keep going up. I've got that particular one here, and I don't know, can you, are you seeing my camera? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I can see it.
To me, it's actually, this one is too big. The square should have been smaller, but I didn't know how it was going to show up on the slides. So that's what I did. But I did a couple of others. I took another, I think we got this one, the next one down, I believe. Can drop down.
Or do you want the next slide?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, yes, right. And that one there, that is with after it was finished, I used that tried and true, because you can see that the basswood out around it is a little more tan colored or whatever. I'm not one that, I don't buy my basswood from Heineke's there, even though theirs it's the best, I'll guarantee you that. But it's also the most expensive. I buy locally, and that's the way it comes out. But I don't mind it. That, well, somebody was talking earlier about their Terra Nova oil and the other one there. This is tried and true. I get it from Lee Valley, and it's a Danish oil, and it's I like it. It's they warn you about combustion and stuff, but I take precautions. So that's what it looks like when I get it done. That's why that one is yellow.
I'm just going to go back to the previous one, so again, people would see the difference. So, you know, that's
that's
the
plain,
acrylic.
that's just plain basswood with nothing on it, just acrylic paint. You know? And there it is. There it is there. And if you look where the various colors cross, you can see the blending. And like I say, that's probably about the poorest example I could have given you. But, it should have been a little smaller squares and stuff. And I've done a couple more here that here again, hoping for effect to show, but then maybe not the right colors for a shirt. But I wanted something that's going to contrast, and it's listed there: burgundy wine, coral rose, blue haven, driftwood. And then the other one is hunter green, sea spray, yellow ochre, and driftwood. But just to, you know, just to show that it is. This is a guy. I think I showed this one last week. Is he on there? Or here again, I can't see.
Yep, he's up right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a bright red and a Christmas red, I think, and 2 shades of gray. That guy is, and so it and a lot smaller squares. So that's one thing I note here too. When I'm painting a shirt or this shirt, before I paint any of the plaid, I usually paint his cuffs. If he's got his sleeves rolled up, I'll paint that with a wash of white. Probably not too obvious, but enough. And then when I paint my plaid, I paint right over top of that, and it gives the appearance of like the inside of the flannel shirt. So that's the other thing I like to do. I like to leave his shirt tail hanging out. These guys don't dress up real good, so.
The other important thing I'm sure everybody recognizes that as his arm changes direction here, your lines change direction as well to follow them.
Yes, yeah. You do that there, and that's really the only place that you got to really pay attention to that. And the collar, I always make sure I got some of the collar done, and I don't know. It's a matter of preference. I've had people look at some of those carvings and grin from ear to ear. And the next guy will come along and look at it and say, you know, what's that guy trying to act out? So it's a matter of personal choice. But,
no, that's really good. That's just great. So I'm sure there's some questions for Wayne here.
I hope they're not too complicated.
Wayne, can you tell us about the brushes you use?
Yes, just as cheap as I can get. I buy most of my supplies for 2 reasons. I live in a very rural area, so I'm not blessed with Walmart and all the other places, but we do have a dollar store in the area. So yeah, I just get cheap brushes. Same way with the dollar paints, with the paints, dollar store paints. I'm sure if the dollar store was in existence when Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel, that's where he was shop too. But no, you got to have a fairly fine brush, but it doesn't have to be a high, $20 artist brush for sure. One other thing I'd like to show too here is on the on some of the plaids. This is something I just knocked out this afternoon, just painted this afternoon. I do a lot of these little things. Anybody that's got friends or relatives in Newfoundland knows what a mummer is.
Mhm.
And anyway, I like the plaid is it doesn't have to be as fine and defined as the other one, because I do a lot of those, and that's only 3 colors. That one, that's a green, an olive green, a dark green, and a rose colored. And
That's great, Wayne. Donna, are you there right now?
Yep.
Could I get you to just mute your unit, because every time something rustles, unfortunately, it goes to your screen rather than the speaker screen. So if you could just mute the microphone, that'd be terrific.
I'm just going to one more little thing. I guess we'll put this in the tips there. If anybody's attempting to do this painting, I would suggest the same as anything else. You do a practice piece. Don't spend 3 weeks carving something and then go ahead and paint it. Get yourself a practice piece. So even though I haven't done that with this, I just at the last minute run down and grabbed it. When I'm carving my characters, I always carve the head separately. I carve the head first, and just to give you some kind of an idea of his persona and stuff, I've taken just pieces of scrap. I've got all kinds of them around, and I just carve it. I wouldn't even go so far as to call it a bust. I put a collar on it and just something that I can put the head in and get a picture. But you could also do something like that to practice your plaid on. I mean, everybody's got scraps laying around, but that's just a piece of it's a piece of scrap. Is what it is. And try it on that. Try it on that, and work the kinks out that way, I would say. But it's not rocket science. If it is, I wouldn't be doing it.
Hey, that was a really good presentation, Wayne. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, well, like I say, it's not something I'm really comfortable doing, but if anybody wants to contact me, I guess there's ways to get a hold of me. I mentioned about Mike Pounders being on Wood Carving Illustrated. I don't know how many of your members here follow that forum either, but if they do, I'm on there, and my username is Soggy, so you can find it there.
Okay.
Thanks
very
Wayne.
much.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's keep moving along then. I put a few slides together on carving wrinkles and folds in clothing, and on the heels of what Mike has, what Wayne has done here, it'll be kind of interesting to think about this, and how would you put a pattern on a shirt if you're doing the wrinkles and the folds. Okay. The first thing that I'll mention is, and we've mentioned before, is that there's a huge library of information available to us on the web. And so if you go to Pinterest and you look up something like wrinkles or folds on clothing, you'll get reams of information from artists all over the world who have put examples of how to sketch or how to carve, mostly how to sketch, but in some cases how to carve wrinkles and folds. And so here's a few examples right here. And so I've tried to give credit where it was apparent to me. So this came from this portion of the website, and this came from this portion of the website. But here, this individual, as he draws or starts to thinking about putting folds in, he draws hoops. And so he's drawing hoops from one, like in this case, the shoulder down towards the elbow, from the elbow down towards the wrist. And that helps him picture where a wrinkle would go. And then he turns it into this sort of thing. And so this hoop would be undercut. And you can see how it's undercut here. He's got a kind of an exaggerated view of it here. But each fold is got a little bit of a mound and then a valley, and then a mound and a valley. And it really adds to the carving. And you can also see these hoops as well here. He's gone from the elbow toward the wrist. And again, sort of a valley up to a mound, down to a valley, up to a mound, and that's how he defines his wrinkles. A really good way to think about wrinkles. This individual here put a really good example of the flow of wrinkles coming from kind of a pinch point. Where is it being stretched from? So where are the wrinkles radiating from because of just the way clothes stretch, you know, in the arms here, you know, underneath the arm toward the wrist, you know, away from the front of the pant if you're stepping forward toward the back. So just look at things like that on Pinterest and you'll find all kinds of really good things. This one caught my eye because, you know, he talked again about where is the fabric pulling from, and you have to think about that. Where in this posture, when I stand in front of the mirror and I do this, where is the fabric pulling from? And so where are the wrinkles going to radiate from? The other thing that I liked, he said fabric is stuck where it passes against the skin. So, you know, around the chest here and you know, down the torso to some extent, it's going to be tight. And so it's just going to follow the skin and you won't see a wrinkle there. And so you'll go from a fold or a wrinkle to nothing at all. And that just tells you that's being stretched across the person's skin. I really like this one, and it's something that I've used quite often, is that at elbows and creases in generally look like triangles. And so, you know, we tend to think of, well, if I make a knife cut here, that's a wrinkle. And if I make a knife cut here, that's a wrinkle. But in behind that wrinkle is a triangle. And so, you know, I think this was a good tip from this individual to think of it in terms of triangles. Another good example from this particular artist that I found on Pinterest, some great pictures, again, showing, you know, he just makes a little circle here to show where the wrinkles are being pinched from and the direction that they're going in. So, you know, perfect example of those hoops and how it's fold within fold as it radiates towards the knee. I like this one, you know, like typically we'll do a caricature of somebody sitting down and we'll make the belt to the leg smooth. But in fact, if you look at how you're sitting right now, your pants are crippled here. They're you know, they're bulging out here. The pockets tend to bulge out. And so think about that. Example here again, you know, where is the pinch point where the wrinkle is emanating from, and does that make the folds and the wrinkles radiate? So make good use of what you find on Pinterest. Make good use of you know, looking at the clothes you're wearing. Whether if you're doing an arm, I typically look down at my shirt that I'm wearing, or I'll go to the mirror. I'll often take a photograph of myself in a mirror. So all ways to understand how you want to make the wrinkles look. One of the best sources of looking at wrinkles is Norman Rockwell. In fact, I think sometimes Norman Rockwell was put on this earth just for caricature carvers. You know, he inspires different themes in your mind. You're not copying his work, but it inspires a theme. But just take a look at the postures and the way that he makes his wrinkles. You know, all the things that we just looked at on those Pinterest drawings are similar to these folds. But just about any Norman Rockwell photograph of a painting that you pull out, you'll learn something about how you want to put the wrinkles in on your carving. Okay, so I'll just stop there for a second if there's any comments or questions. Okay, so here's what I did. I carved 3 arms. Okay, so the top here is the shoulder, elbow, and wrist. Okay, and it's just scrap piece of basswood. There is probably 3/8 of an inch diameter after I carved it. It was pretty small. Each one of them, I have bandsaw, so I just cut them off really quickly on a bandsaw. You don't need a bandsaw. If you have a handsaw at home, you can cut these out in no time at all. On each one of them, the grain of the wood went in this direction. Okay, and so if you're doing an arm like this, and it's going to be fairly close coupled to the body, it's not going to break if the grain goes in this direction. You're getting a fair amount of strength. I put these arrows in. I know you folks already know this, but I just want to repeat it again. But so if the grain of the wood is going in this direction, that means if I follow this arrow, the grain is coming out here. And so when I cut this side, I want to cut in that direction because I'm cutting it in the lay of the grain. If I cut it in the opposite direction, I can't switch this arrow around, but if I pull it down this way, I'm picking up all the grain. And I'm either going to have a very terrible cut or it's going to split the wood. And so you always go in the direction, you cut always in the direction of the way the grain is laying down. So follow that thought. If the arrow is going down this way, that means I have to cut in this direction. If the arrow is going in this way, it means it's coming out here, the grain, and that means to cut along the lay of the grain, I've got to cut in this direction. Okay, so a little thing for you to practice while you're doing this. And when I carve, I stop and think of the grain of the direction. I just don't go at it blindly. I think, okay, I've turned this over now in my hand. Which way is the grain going? How am I going to cut so that I'm laying down the grain? And that'll make the cleanest, nicest cut, and you won't do any damage to your carving. Now, we've said before that sometimes you're just in a pickle, you're in a corner, you just have to cut against the grain. Do it carefully. Make sure your knife is absolutely surgically sharp, and you'll get away with it. But if you can cut in the lay direction of the grain, you're way ahead of the ball game. Okay, everybody understand that? So with that in mind, I just went and I rounded all these out. So I made 3 arms, and then you'll see in a minute, I carved each arm to show you a various degree of adding wrinkles. So this is the first degree of adding wrinkles, and then makes fine wrinkles. And if you had a carving that looked like that, we'd all be happy about it. Here's another degree of adding wrinkles, and I'm going to talk about these individually. And again, if you left it like that, you're going to have a beautiful carving. And then here's the 3rd degree of adding wrinkles. And you can see I've added a lot of the things that you saw in some of those Pinterest diagrams. And I also added things that you would have seen in Norman Rockwell paintings. Okay, so 3 different degrees of adding folds and wrinkles, and you just go with the one you're satisfied with, right? So stop me at any time or I'll keep rambling here, okay?
Mark, for those, I have a quick question. Did you use just knives or gouges, or what did you use?
I just use knives in this case, Fergus. Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay, thank you.
Was there another question or comment? Okay, just stop me, okay, or else I'll just keep blabbing. So this isn't the greatest photograph for being in focus, but you can see what I did here. So in this case, I just did I very, very quickly carved this round. Do this on a scrap piece of paper. It's, how we're always harping about roundness in arms and legs and bodies. This is a good practice piece to just practice doing something completely round. And so that's what I did here. This is a completely round arm, upper arm and lower arm. And then I just made a V cut. So with a knife, I made 1 cut in, I made a 2nd cut in, and that's a wrinkle. I made another cut in, a 2nd cut in, and that's a wrinkle. So we call these stop cuts, right? So I made 1 cut in, the 2nd cut in stops against that. And if your knife is really sharp, we've mentioned to you, you'll hear a click. It's just like that. You'll hear a pop, and that tells you, okay, you've got a really nice sharp knife and you've made a nice crisp line. Now I've come back and just put a very light wood burning line along that. And I did that just for the photograph. You can do that on your carving with folds and wrinkles. My advice would be that if you do use a wood burning tool on the bottom of a very sharp cut like this, use a very low rating on your wood burning tool. Like if it goes from 1 to 10, use a 2 or a 3. If you use too high a level, you'll burn the wood and you'll lose that edge. You'll turn that nice crisp edge into a rounded valley. Okay, so just a little tip there. But again, if you did a carving like that with a little bit more care, because I did these very quickly, you have a pretty nice wrinkle there. You could have, I could have taken this and moved it closer into the center. I wanted a little bit of space here, and so I just made the wrinkle a little bit further, and that's a pretty nice looking wrinkled arm. Okay, any questions on that one? Okay, so what did I do on the second one? Well, on the second one, I did exactly the same thing. I made 3 initial cuts. So this was the first cut. Again, 1 V cut in, a stop cut, and then I stopped against it. This was the second cut, the second wrinkle, and this was the third wrinkle. Okay, so if you can keep your eyes on those, that's the third, that's the second, and this was the first cut. And then what did I do? I said, okay, with between the first cut and the second cut, there's clearly a mound, and that's what wrinkles are all about, right? Is you have a valley and a mound of fabric and a valley. And so in that mound, I cut it away again. I made another cut in exactly the same way, you know, V cut in with 1 stop cut and the second cut in, pulled that material out. Same thing here. Here's the third initial cut, the second initial cut, and I made 1 in here to just into that mound. And so now, instead of having, as I showed you in the first picture, a valley, a mound, a valley, and a mound, now I have a valley, a mound, a valley, a mound, a valley, a mound. So it just makes the whole wrinkle a lot more interesting to look at. And then because I wanted to make this portion a mound, I just made another cut in here. So this is another straight cut in here. And this time I went way back on the arm and made that really gradual coming up to that cut. And I made on this initial cut here, this was the third initial cut, I made another slice here, and then I used that as a stop cut, and I started way back here and made a nice gradual cut into that. So now you've added a lot more interest to the wrinkle. So there was the first one, nothing wrong with that wrinkled shirt at all. Here's the second one. Okay, it's just that much more interesting. You have more character in the clothing in this case. Okay, any comments or questions on that? Okay, and so here's the third piece. And so what did I do? Well, there's the first cut, there's the second cut, there's the third cut, there's those little valleys I made within the folds, within the mounds of folds. Here's the cut I made to make the third cut a fold, and the long line took 2. Here's the cut I made outside of the first fold, and the long line I put into that. And then I made some of those hoops. So I drew a hoop from the shoulder down to the elbow, shoulder down to the elbow, and I made sure that I had a valley, a mound, down into a valley and a mound again. I made a hoop here, so a hoop from towards the elbow to towards the wrist. Again, I made sure that there was a mound, a valley, and a mound. And I could have left it like that, and that would have just added that much more interest. But if you just took your knife and you scooped out a little bit here, almost randomly, kind of just scoop out a bit, it just gives your sleeve, in this case, such more interest. Like there's nothing straight about this sleeve. It's all got a form to it. And if you look at your sleeve while you're sitting there watching this, you'll notice the same thing. There's nothing straight on your shirt. When you look down your shirt, you've got that kind of contour going on. And of course, here I added a little bit of a cuff. Okay. So so I'm going to show you a few pictures of how I use these processes in some of my carvings. But what I'd suggest to you is this, is that, you know, for tonight's project, do this between now and our next Zoom call. Just take a scrap piece of wood, a couple scrap pieces of wood, and practice doing some wrinkles, just as fast as that. You know, just make a rounded upper arm and lower arm, and then add some wrinkles and see how far you get. And then just add some really crazy little, just start carving in pieces randomly to make sure there are no straight edges on your sleeve, and just practice that. You don't want to practice that on one of the carvings you're just finishing. Practice on just a scrap piece of wood. Okay, so how does that turn into wrinkles on your carving? So here's a good example of a carving that I did with a whole bunch of wrinkles. And so I had to go and I had to research a number of hockey players leaning over a bench to get this right, and making sure that I had all of the wrinkles from the shoulder pads down to his sweater. And you can see it's exactly what I just told you. There's a mound here, there's a valley and a mound. And then if you look underneath here, there's the V cut within the mound, just to give it more interest. You know, here's one of the hoops that we talked about. here's another one of those hoops that we talked about. And it's just as simple as that. You know, these here were cut out with a gouge, a small gouge, so that was dished out. And I just went around and randomly just added some nicks and valleys to give it some character. All right, so that's the notion of folds. I'm showing you this one in that, you know, the folds are very simple down here. I didn't do a whole lot of folds because the pant was really heavy wool. And so you got to think about, okay, how is this, you know, silk is going to give you a real tight wrinkle. Something heavy like canvas or wool is going to give you a real long wrinkle or a full wrinkle. But I wanted to show you this backpack because as I researched this backpack and what they wore at the time in 1812, they were square because they had inside was a wood frame and they just sat square against their backs. It must have been so uncomfortable. But just take a look at the kind of nicks that the little scoops with a knife that I used to give it some character. So a lot of character between this belt, and I made sure that it was scooped in around the belt. This flap, I made sure it was scooped in around the flap. But look, if you look at that pack and you don't see any straight lines really, it's because I went and I made sure everything had a contour. This blanket, very simple in terms of carving it, but I just put one wrinkle here and one wrinkle there and made sure that it looked like it was drooped. But again, very, very, you know, with a gouge in this case, very, very random gouge marks to make sure nothing was straight on this piece of, on this blanket in this case.
Beautiful.
So this cowboy, you guys have seen this cowboy before. So again, take a look, like these are the hoops, right? This is from that Pinterest shot where the pinch point is and it goes towards the elbow. You know, his arm is a little bit of a different position here. So the wrinkles go in this direction, but here's the first cut you can see, here's the second cut that would have left a mound. Here's the third cut in the mound to give it more interest. Here's some more hoops going from the elbow down toward the wrist. The back is carved out of the chaps. Now you might have said, well, you know, the chaps are going to flow straight down, but they don't, right? Chaps are heavy leather, and so they're gonna, you know, you're going to see a flow just like that. The wrinkles in the chaps are going to be very broad because it's heavy material, right? So just think about those kinds of things. This guy, again, you know, he's in the wind. Now this was a character that I actually put a sports jacket on, and I stood in front of Peggy, and Peggy took a bunch of photographs of me, and I went with that to understand where the folds would be and where the wrinkles would be. But again, there's nothing magic about it. You can just see those initial cuts and then breaking down that mound between the initial cuts to give it more character. And you can see it there. Can see it here, you can see it there. There's an initial cut, and there's the mound cut there. In this case, I wanted to make it look like he was flying through the wind, and so this, you know, the jacket's up and down, and there's a little bit of a split where the split in the sports jacket would be. Okay. I don't want to belabor this, but I'll just go through these quickly. You've seen this one, very simple wrinkles in this case. Okay, so he's in his heavy shorts here, he's got very simple wrinkles. But the shirt, again, the shirt comes in and out. There's no straight lines. You can see where the shirt has landed on his thigh here. It's rippled, right? So I've got a mound, a valley, a mound, and a valley. Take a look at your own shirt. Like he's wearing kind of a long sleeve undershirt here, and it'll mound where the belt line is, right? And so a couple of quick mounds in there, nothing really magic. It's just that mound, valley, mound, valley. This guy's pants, where the intent was that his pants were to be kind of a canvas pants, so you can see the same, you know, valley, mound, but they're very broad. They're very broad because the canvas pant wouldn't fold like a silk fabric would, right? And so you see that happening there. You can see here how the shirt, and just take a look at your own shirt, how the shirt puckers up and folds over the belt. You know, they're easy to do. In this case, I would have used a gouge and just simply gouge that out and simply gouge this portion out, and you've got the fold. Very simple folds in this guy. Very simple folds in this guy. I want to show you a couple of things here. First of all, like just look at that contour against the black. There's no straight line there. There's no straight line here. I made sure that I went with my knife until all the straight lines were gone. I want to reflect back on something that John has talked to us about in painting in the valley, make it a little bit darker. So he's got a denim shirt on here. The mounds, the high points will be lighter. The valleys will be darker. And if you look at your own shirt, that's the way color works. The deeper into the fabric, it looks like it's a different color. And so use color to help exaggerate that. And so this guy here, again, very simple. I had to stand in front of the mirror. In this case, I couldn't find a picture of somebody in that posture. And so I stood in front of a mirror and just made some, again, very simple, valley, mound, valley, mound. In this case, pretty broad. They're not very tight. They're pretty broad. And you may be able to see it here, but the shirt, again, kind of undulates in and out. Okay. And then I'll go to this one. So this is a simple boot that maybe, again, as a project we should do as a group. But look how simple that boot is. So I made sure that I carved a round boot, and then I just randomly went with a bunch of V cuts. So the stop cut and then the second cut, and then I scooped some out. That's all done with a knife, and just very randomly. But look at the character that boot has by just putting a few lines of that valley mound idea in. Okay. So that's what I wanted to show you. Any questions before we go to the next piece? I know that was quick, but I think you got the idea how to try it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah. Also, I noticed that you sometimes you put a little bit of shading with your paint in the crevice.
Yeah.
Now you haven't mentioned that word painting tonight with putting in that little bit of carving, a little bit of paint, darker paint, same paint, but darker.
Yeah.
And I can see it in your boot there.
Yeah.
It's very clear. That's very important.
Yeah, it is.
I noticed that you never use dry brushing.
In fact, I do. It's probably just the photographs, you can't see it, but in fact, I do use dry brushing.
I see a little there on the bedroll. I can see a little, but
yeah, it's probably more just the photographs. It's hard to see, but I do use dry brushing. Here, you can see the dry brushing here.
Yeah. Oh, you can really see it there. Yes.
Yeah. But the point I was making that you may not have heard is John Paul actually did a painting tutorial for us and talked about exactly what you just raised, of putting a little darker color in the valleys of the wrinkles, because it just brings your eye more to seeing a fold or a wrinkle.
Right. One thing, if you have any time at all, I'd like to tell people about a good book they can get for doing the plaid.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I got it. Okay. Eldon Humphrey. He's the boy that does all the golfers, and he does all the kilts. And he's got a wonderful book on painting the plaids on the tartans. And everybody should get it. And I know if they buy that book, they'll do every one of the patterns in the book. It's a marvelous book.
Okay, well,
I've had it for years, and I've done every one of his carvings. And in fact, I've taught it to more than 50 people.
Why don't you plan for our next Zoom call to do a little review of the book and show us some of the pages? And
we could do that, or would you like me to send some pictures to you, or
you could do that, and I'll set them up in the slides for the next meeting.
I don't know whether I'm around or not. Do the people see me right now?
Yep.
Can they see this kilt on here?
Yeah, very nice.
On a golfer.
Yeah.
And here he is here. Yeah. Well, I recommend the book. It's called Carving McGolfers, and it's by Eldon Humphrey. So
okay,
get it. You'll really love it. Thanks.
Thanks, Don.
Okay, I'm out.
Okay, well, thanks for listening to that. Give that a try. Try those 3 little projects that I talked about. Quick to do. You'll have them done in a half an hour, the 3 of them, but it's good practice. Okay, Murray, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Well, it's really exciting tonight to be able to share this thought with you, or with these folks and with others, that at our carving shows starting up this year, almost all now are ready to go up until October. And so in our Horizon newsletter that we publish once a month, put this together, the True North Caricature Carvers participating in OCA's shows. We want to invite you to take part. And if you go to the next slide there, the shows where normally we go to shows, we'll have a table for Ontario Woodcarver Association, magazines, information about how to join and so on. We're going to put a second table up beside that just for TNCC. And if your club is planning to be at the show and you perhaps are coming along, if you would be able to volunteer a little bit of time to come and stand behind the table, stand with the table with your caricature carvers, your carvings that you've done, and to display them. Now, Mark, since you and I talked about this, one thing that I would like to suggest is a possibility that would expand it further than just the Ontario group, that some that may be involved in watching our videos and doing caricature carving, if you would send me a photograph of your carving. So you're responsible to take the photograph and then send it to me. I don't want to receive it by email. I'd like you to do the printing. I don't want the extra cost of having to go to Walmart or wherever to get the print done. But if you could print a copy of that, either the 3x4, I think they're 4x6, I guess it is, or the 5x8, put it in an envelope. And if you can email me, I'll send my address to you so you can be able to send that to me. So the idea would be that on the table, we'd have something to display. If folks are there and they can bring their carvings over to the table, that would be great. But wouldn't it be amazing to have a scrapbook or pages put in these into a plastic sheath and be able to have people pick them up and take a look at the caricature carvers work that are coming from all over the world, really. And so inviting people that may be in Ireland or wherever to send your photograph to me. And we'll be able to show that at our shows coming up.
Good.
So we're looking for volunteers.
Okay, and you're going to talk about where those are,
Yes.
and then maybe we can talk a little more about the Quinty show.
Okay. Then April 15th is the first one, Quinty show. And what I'm asking you to do, you'll see on the video and on this presentation today, you'll see the information there of what you would be required to do or the things that you can enter and so on. The Quinty show, as well as I think the Bob Cajun show, the Kawartha region one, are shows that have prizes that will be their purchase awards. And Mark, maybe you can describe a little bit about that because you've been involved in looking at some of those too. What is a purchase award?
Yeah, and so a purchase is when something like a real estate office or a dental office would ask for a particular carving, and they'd put up the dollars to buy that carving. And so I think it's the it's the Bob Cajun show that has got a purchase prize for caricature carving, and they would like to see a curler, with a male or female curler with all of the appropriate garb. And I hope I'm right here. I think the purchase prize is $500. And so what happens is you bring your carving and 10 other people bring their carvings, you win, you get $500, and the dentist gets your carving. And so that's why it's called a purchase award.
Well, the Quinty show now has that also. In fact, maybe they're the first ones to do that. Our second show is May 20th to 21st down in Niagara Falls. And let's say ours, but their next show with the Niagara Falls folks are putting this on. They're in a brand new facility, much bigger, more opportunity, more facility space. And again, the website's there for you to take a look at. It sounds like they're really excited about it. The only problem Niagara Falls has right now is finding a regular place to carve each week or each month. So they're working at that. June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, a Canadian wildfowl carving competition. And they have wood in the art city. So you'll have literally hundreds of birds from all over Canada come in because it's a national show. And then the wood art in the city is a show where caricature carving is shown, and plus everything else. So again, it's another great show. Go to the next slide. And that comes to the Kawartha carving competition. Dave Laux is on this call tonight. Maybe you could say something about if you're involved in that, Dave. But one of the exciting things I see about this is the partnership that has grown from the carvers in their carving clubs to join with the Bobcaygeon Curling Club, who is now promoting this widely, even more so than what most of our carving clubs have done. Dave, could you say more about that?
Sure. The Kawartha carving competition as of last year is now sponsored and run by the Bobcaygeon Curling Club. And it just got to be too much for the people that were originally running it. So they have taken on the not only the sponsorship, but they run it with our assistance. And this is the first year in many years where there's been a caricature carving that's a purchase award. In addition to that, in September 29, there are 2 other purchase awards, and they're both wildfowl. And it's an excellent show held in Bobcaygeon, but it's the Kawartha carving competition.
Okay, the final one on the list we have tonight is October 20th, 22nd. And it's just a delight to have Gina Downs contact me not too many days just ago that she did that, telling us that the Hamilton Wood Show will be on bill at the Caledonian Fairgrounds. So if you go to the woodshows.com, you can see more about that. But she's delighted to invite our carvies to come and participate that in the fall season. So I think it's a great time, and they've been without any kind of shows. It's been really difficult for them as a family, but we want to support them as much as we can. Any questions about any of these other than getting the right address, web pages?
Yeah, I wanted to first of all say thanks, Murray, and the OWCA for helping the TNCC attend these shows. So, you know, Murray and the OWCA directors are paying the $20 table fee for us, so we're not going to be able to pocket for that. And I also wanted to say that I'm going to be at the Quinte Woodcarver Show in Belleville. And anybody that would like to join me, terrific. I know that, you know, the Kingston folks here, it's easier for us to get to it. Others are 2.5 hours away. And it is a one-day show, a lot of fun. And as Murray said, we'll have that TNCC table set up, and bring your carvings, and we'll just have some fun. So thanks for that, Murray.
Okay.
Hey, Murray, thanks for paying for my flight to Ontario.
5x7s.
I didn't know, but thanks, Murray.
Listen, the last thing I want to say before we sign off is that we've got the vinyl stickers out. Those are the prices. We've had a number of our group order these. And it's as simple as that. It's $3 a sticker, add on postage, and we'll throw it in. I'll throw it in an envelope. You can e-transfer the money to Anne at her email account there, or you can just send a check, and Anne will pick it up there. Thanks to again Anne, because she's handling all of the dollars for us in a separate account under the OWC umbrella. I just will make a little bit of a pitch that, you know, this is a nice way for each of us to support each of us, because, you know, we're not charging any fees for this. Again, the OWCA is being very generous in providing us with this Zoom platform that they pay for on an annual basis. So we're not paying anything into that. None of us that present, any one of us that present, get any compensation. So the only way we can make a little bit of money for ourselves is by doing this kind of thing. And it is a little bit of money, but that little bit of money will go to purchasing some awards for our next virtual show. So support it. If you haven't bought a vinyl sticker yet, or a couple of them, support it, and we'll have a little cash to play with for our shows. And with that, I'm going to stop the screen share. And we're 1 minute over on our time contract here, so that's not too bad. Any
Want to see something, Mark? Yeah, this is what I got. That's it for the wrinkles and stuff. I have these laminated, and this is a little reminder. You know, I always have them out there and little ideas, and this reminds me how to do these things and what it looks like, what it's supposed to look like.
Perfect.
Well, I always have them on hand.
Yeah, perfect.
It's my bench.
Any other comments before we sign off? Okay, thank you, everyone. Enjoy the next month carving, and we'll get together again soon.